Okay, Be'ez Hashem will be starting here on Daf Mem Hey. We're in Chidush Ha'olam Chelek Beis Perek Aleph Ois Beis on page Mem Hey. We were discussing last week about the Chidush Ha'olam, about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothingness. Here in Ois Beis, the Rapinkus starts to discuss the differences and what the uniqueness of our Emunah over what secular philosophers, already beginning from Malthus, Yavon, what they believed in. It should just be noted before we begin, the ideas of heresy, of belief in no God at all, that things were always as they were, as the Greek philosophers said, that just like there was a creator or something like that, there was also the world already existed. The world existed always. These ideas were new when it came to Greek philosophy. There were thousands of years of history before the Greeks came onto the scene. What happened during that time? Even during the times of Enosh, when Avodah Zarah became rampant, it wasn't a belief in nothingness. They understood that there was spirituality. They understood there were things greater and deeper than them, and things were coming from on high. And they had Avodah Zarah, and there was a certain belief in the Avodah Zarah based on something. Avodah Zarah, right? Avodah Zarah is also known as Avodas Kochavim Umazolos, what Chazal call an akum. A goy, a nochri, is also referred to as an akum. Akum is Roshi Tebos for Oived Kochavim Umazolos, somebody who serves the stars and the constellation. Why is it referred to that way? The reason is because they were able to see through the stars what Shefa was going to come down here on earth. And it was true. There was Shefa that was seen in the stars. The stars are like a book where you can see things. If you know how to read it, you can read things in the stars and see what's going to happen. Many of these things are true. Rashi, in fact, comments on it numerous times on the Torah that the astrologers know how to read the stars to a certain degree. They know how to read the stars to see that something is happening and where more or less where it's going to happen and what more or less was about, but they do not have specifics. One of the main places we see this is in the beginning of Parshas Boy, where Paro says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to go out to Mitzrayim? He says in the pasuk over there, his hand, quote the pasuk the right way instead of just trying to fudge it. The beginning of Parshas Boy, in Rishon of Parshas Bo, towards the end of Rishon, he says, a second, let me just find it. Vayomer Aleihem, Pasuk Yud, Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud. Vayomer Aleihem, Paro said to Moshe and Aaron, Ye kain Hashem imachem. Yes, God is with you. Kasher ashalechetchem ve'etapachem. When I send you out and your children, Ru'u, see, ki ra'a neged penechem, because there is evil that is going to greet you. Here, Rashi comments that ra'a, the evil that it's referring to, is the name of a star. There's a star that's coming up above the desert, the Midbar. That star is called Ra'ah. It's a sign of blood. It's a sign of forms of death. And Paro was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, I see already in the Midbar that there's going to be destruction. That's where you're bringing your people out. And later on, by the Maisa Egel, it says the same lashon. That Moshe says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lama Yomru Mitzrayim Lemor Ki Bara'a Hotziam. We took them out with Ra. He was talking about the same star, what Paro was talking about over here. You see, if you destroy all of Klal Yisrael, then it's going to turn out what Paro said was true. Because there was Ra'ah. The star Ra'ah is there that shows blood and destruction. Should we make Paro be true? What he says to be right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it back. And he changed that the Ra'ah is not going to be blood of death, but rather blood of Bris Milah. So this is one of the classic places where Paro says, where Rashi says, Chas v'shalom, not Paro, where Rashi says that the astrologers, they can see things in the stars, but they don't know exactly what they see. The same thing the astrologers saw the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was born, but they didn't know if he was going to be a Jew or Mitzri. And they saw that he was going to be punished through water. So they thought to throw all the babies in the water, and he was punished through water, but just not what they thought, rather through the Mei Meriva. So these things are true. They do exist. However, they're not God. They're the channels that God uses to send Shepa onto earth. The ta'ut, the mistake that all those people made was to give them the status of being some kind of power. They don't have any power. Hashem just uses them as his shlichim to do things in this world, just like he has malachim to do things in this world, just like he can have even physical things to be his shlichim in this world. Medrash brings many different examples of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends insects to do his shlichus for him. They're not gods. So even back then, they understood their spirituality. They understood there's something above them, something supernatural. Greek philosophy began this idea of atheism. Began this idea of there is nobody in charge. There is nothing. This is something new. And it really started with the beginning of Bayis Man Bayis Sheni after Nevuah ended. After there was no more Nevuah, there was really real Avodah Zarah as it was back then. The taiva for Avodah Zarah ended because the Anshe Knesset Gedolah took it away. So this new type of outlook on life was new. It was brand new. And the Greek philosophers basically said that the world always was. It always was. And therefore there's no creation from nothingness. Because it always was here. They do believe, he brings over here in the second paragraph, this is from the Sefer Akedah, that there was a certain creator and the world. Meaning, he doesn't explain, but it must be the creator created some things. But the world was here as a whole. Kibiyachol, we're looking at this to a certain degree as like a partnership, so to speak. That the world was always here and God was always here. They were both always here. This is certainly something that is totally against Emunah, totally against the Torah Hashkafa, because we know there's only one Hashem, like we discussed already in the past, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the complete oneness that there is, the source of everything. It is totally indivisible, and cannot be divided like every other thing that exists, because Hashem created everything. But the idea of Yesh Me'ayin was totally rejected by the Greek philosophers. He even says that Melchizedek believed in Hashem, but he didn't believe in the concept of Yesh Me'ayin. What exactly did he have a whole worked out system of what exactly happened? I don't know. But the philosophy as a whole was the Greek philosophy. Here, he makes a side point over here on the next page in Daf Mem Bov, that there was a question of when did Avram Avinu come on to this understanding of Yesh Me'ayin? Because you can imagine Avram Avinu was a Baal Mechadish. There were people in the generation who were Baalei Emunah. They believed in Hashem, right? There was still Shem was still around, if Melchizedek was Shem or not. They were still here. There were great people, and even I believe Noach was still alive. There are people who are great people. So when did Avram Avinu come on to this? So he makes a whole cheshbon over here. In the second paragraph, Nir lefiani is daiti sha Avram Avinu hisig soid chidush ha'olam k'shahayah ben arboim mishmoinim. When he was 48 years old, he came on to this chiddush. of Yesh Me'ayin, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world out of nothing. Bizman Dor HaFloga. Shalzman Zeh Amru Chazal, about this time, it says in Bereshis Rabbah, but Ba'oid Mekoimis, other places as well. Me'echan Mamad Avram Avinu Torah. There wasn't, who taught Avram Avinu Torah? Zimin HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shtei Kloyos Kimin Shnei Rivonim Vayunovos U'Milamdos Ozo Torah V'Chochma. Hashem took his two kidneys, and his kidneys taught him Torah. What does that mean? Kind of like a funny thing. His kidneys taught him Torah? So he brings a pasuk over here. Here he said, "Harei shenemer b'loshen Chazal Avram Shalom Torah v'chidush ha'olam hu tchilas ha'Torah ma diksiyah b'reishis tahaya reishis b'tchilas lakol." This beginning of learning Torah is the first thing he learns from the word Bereshis, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world out of nothing. Just as an aside, what does it mean that Avram Avinu was learned Torah by his kloyos? What does that mean? So the Chayra, what it means is that Avram Avinu connected himself completely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He had such a strong desire to do the Ratzon Hashem, and to try to understand what the Ratzon Hashem was, that he was able to feel out, really from his body, whether something was a mitzvah or not. He was able to come to a complete understanding that this was a mitzvah and this wasn't. That's what it means. He learned it from himself. Because of his... filter the blood. They taking out the good... Yeah, I hear. They even say that there are three parts of the body that represent machshava, thought. And they are the brain, the heart, and the kidneys. They're the three parts of the body that represent your thinking process. The Ma'asi, he brings over here that it was at this age of 48, when Avram Avinu was 48, which was the year of the Dor HaFlaga, of the Maisa of the HaFlaga. That's where he came on to this idea, this yisoid of Chidush HaOilam. There are other midrashim that say that Avram Avinu already recognized Hashem from the age of 3. From the pasuk ve'ekev asher tishma Avram b'koili. Ekev is the lashon of is a gematria of 172. Avram Avinu lived to 175, which means Ekev means when he, for 172 years he served me. Which means it was at the age of 3 that he recognized me, and he lived to 175, so it was 172 years, gematria of Ekev. But there were different madregos. Other places where Pinchas talks about this, in the Sefer Brechos Becheshbon, he talks about this more, about what happens at each stage of Avram Avinu's life. But here he brings that at the age of 48, he came onto this understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothing. So just so they can go back to what we were discussing before, this idea of Yesh Me'ayin basically says that the whole world, meaning Teva, the creation of the physical world, and for that matter, the spiritual world as well. But for our purposes, we're going to be talking about the spiritual world. Teva is not a constant. Hashem has complete control over the Teva, and Hashem can change the Teva. This is also seen that HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked Avram Avinu above the Teva. It says in Parshas Lech Lecha that Avram Avinu said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you're going to give me all these wonderful things, but I don't have any children. And I see in the stars that I'm not meant to have any children. Avram Avinu also was able to read the stars. And he says, I'm not going to, Ani holech ariri, the pasuk says, I'm going to be without children. So what's it worth it to me? I'm not going to have any children. And the Medrash there says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Avram Avinu out and showed him the stars. But the Medrash says he didn't just show him the stars. He raised him above the stars and says, you are not subject to the constellations. You are not subject to the shepherd that it looks like is being sent down into this world. You're above that. Since you're above that, don't worry about what it says over there, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls and can change anything that's in the Bria, because he created the Bria from nothingness. You're not subject to the Bria as if the Bria has its own existence on its own. If the Greeks would be correct, so then the physical would have its own existence on its own, which is in essence a very, very big part of all of secular philosophy. Even those who believe in spirituality believe that there's a major separation between the physical and the spiritual. And this, unfortunately, has seeped into many Jewish people's understanding as well, but it's a very big mistake. People think that being poirish, meaning separating yourself completely from the physical world, will make you a holy person, something that has already been taken on by the church. That the more separated you are from the physicalness of the world, the more holy you are. So there's a complete separation between physical and spiritual. The more separate you are from the physical, the more spiritual you are. So it makes sense, these two pieces, there's two things, and the two things essentially really have nothing to do with each other. There's God and spirituality, and there's physical. If you believe that the two always existed, then they're equal. They're two different things, that they're two equal things. Each one does not have a power over the other. So therefore the physical existed, and it always existed according to Greek philosophy. It is on its own. And then there's the spiritual side. So you have a choice. You can choose. I'm going to be physical or I'm going to be spiritual. I want to be spiritual. I have to separate myself from the physical. And some people can be, okay, sometimes I'm going to be physical and sometimes I'm going to be spiritual, like Bilam. Bilam was a man who was incredibly spiritual. He had a level of Nebuah, Chazal tell us, that was almost at the same level of Moshe Rabbeinu. On the other hand, Bilam was a manuval. He was a disgusting individual. His wife was his donkey, and he advised Balak to be mafkir their own daughters in order to make Klal Yisrael sin. He was a person who had no morals in his own personal life, nor in giving advice to others, even though he was completely on a very, very high spiritual level. So the two things are completely separate. Completely separate. We know that that's not true. The greatest Kedusha comes within the physical things. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't only want your mind, he wants your body. Right? To say I'm a Jew at heart is not good enough. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants your hands. He wants your body. He wants you to do mitzvahs. He wants you to act like a Jew. He doesn't just want you to be a Jew at heart and then just with your body do whatever you want. No, with your body you should be a Jew. Everything. We have 613 mitzvahs. Yes, a number of them are sichli. They're mind mitzvahs. Emunah, bitachon amongst them are mind mitzvahs, believing in the yichud of Hashem. But there are tons and tons of physical mitzvahs that we're supposed to be doing. All the karbonos, the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash. We're supposed to be. We have mitzvahs of speaking. We put on tefillin. We put on tzitzis. We check a lulav on sukkahs. There's so many mitzvahs that we're supposed to be doing with our bodies. Toivel and a mikvah. There are so many physical mitzvahs because the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants our physical too, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the physical world too, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu is not limited to the physical, to what the physical rules of nature are. When it comes to something that is eternal doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end. If it had an end, it wouldn't be eternal. So it's the fact that something had a beginning proves that it has an end. If it doesn't have an end, it means it doesn't have a beginning. And that is where we come back to Shabbos. Because Shabbos is the proof. Shabbos is the proof that the world was created. The fact that the world stopped, that there was no more creation, the creation ended, shows that there was a beginning of creation, that there was nothing beforehand. And that's what Shabbos represents. And that's why Shabbos is so strong to give us this emunah that we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. What the Greek philosophy is, and all the outgrowth of that Greek philosophy, that the world is just on its own, and therefore the physical aspects of the world are just not subject to God, not subject to spirituality. So those things are just not true. All of creation is all from Hashem. The physical world is also all from Hashem. We see that on Shabbos. It's an amazing thing. The way I may have mentioned this here before, but I really enjoy this proof. The way we count time in the world is all astrological, except for the secular year, which is totally nonsensical completely. But the way that classically time was counted was astrological. A day is defined by nighttime and daytime, which is based on the revolution of the earth. A month is totally on the new moon, built off the new moon. A year on the sun, on the seasons. What's a week based on? The whole world has a week. Where does a week come from? What's the idea of a week? Is it based on anything astrological? No, there is nothing astrological in the week. The week is only based on that the world was created in 6 days, and the 7th day was Shabbos, and they stopped work. That is the source for the week. I don't know I can't give you edus on every single place in the world, but pretty much this is universally held for the last thousands of years. I think over the course of time, maybe the people tried to change it, didn't work out so well for them.
That's not astrological.
A week?
Is it?
What? Is what?
You're saying that the week is astrological?
No, the week is dafka not astrological. It's the only thing that's not astrological. A day is, a month is, a year is, but a week is not. So that's the proof. Where does it come from? It comes from creation. It proves that Hashem created the world. And that means if Hashem created the world, he's not subject to the rules of the world. It's not constant. There was an end to the creation. The creation ended over here. That shows that there was a beginning of the creation, that it started with something. It wasn't always here. And that proves the Yesh Me'ayin, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the worlds from nothingness. So when we look at Shabbos, we're looking at that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the master of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yachid. He is the only one, the only existence. And then he created the world and brought all of us into existence. I'm here right before Oz Gimel on Daf Mem Zayin. Mizbayer Ata. Lama HaShabbos Hi Yisoid L'Kol Emunah Yisrael. Why is Shabbos the foundations of all of Emunah for Klal Yisrael? Shabbos Moyer Al Achidish. Because Shabbos teaches us the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mechadish the world. V'Achidush Moyer Al Yichud. And when we know that there's a Chidush, we know that there's Yesh Me'ayin, we also know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one and only true existence that there is, period. Shezeh Yisoid HaKol. That is the Yisoid of everything. Skipping down now to Gimel. V'nivar et advarim og tzas. I'm going to explain this a little bit more, says Rav Pinkus. Hine haklal hu shekol she'ein lo tchila ein lo soif. The idea is, if it doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end. If something is eternal, it always was here, then it always will be here. The efshar lo yimer al davar she'ein lo tchila rak im metzius muchrachas mitzad atzmo. You can only say something had no beginning if its essence is always here. Its essence has to be here. The kol shenimsa b'mikra al korchosh yesh l'tchila. If something is just what we call b'mikra, randomly here, then it wasn't always here. The imlokein eich nitave. How could something be here? V'rak muchrach hametzius nimsa mitzad ha'hechrech ve'en lo tchila. Only something that had to be here doesn't have a beginning. Umemela. Yefshar sheyeh lo soif. Must be then that it doesn't have an end either. If you're going to say that the entire creation was already here beforehand, there could be no end. There couldn't be an ending to it. The world would be exactly the way it is always. It would have no change to it. And this is the idea that the world ended and finished on the 7th day. And he finished the work that was put into the creation of the world was finished. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the work, it was finished. That was it. We're finished. We're done. There is no more creation. Creation is finished. and there is nothing new anymore. Raya hi sha'olam hayalotchila. That is a proof. Excuse me. Raya hi sha'olam hayalotchila v'shuhu mechudesh. That is a proof that the world had a beginning and that it was created new. Lachein anu shoiftim mimalach b'yom Shabbos. That's why we don't do work on Shabbos. Zecher l'shvisa rishona, because that shows that the world stopped, that the creation stopped. Zecher l'shvisa rishona, as a zecher, as a remembrance that the first time, the first Shabbos that Hashem stopped working. Shehi hoira muchachas sha'olam mechudash, because this is a raya brura that this is a world that was created out of nothing. So that's what's a beautiful thing. It's something we try to take something out of this, and we try to be mechazik for us on Shabbos. Maybe try to think about it in the beginning of Shabbos that we're doing something incredibly special over here. We are remembering Zeichel Amasa Bereshis. We are remembering the creation of the world. What's so important about Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. Is there a mitzvah to remember Ma'aseh Bereshis? Not necessarily. But what is there a mitzvah? There is a mitzvah to believe in the Yichud of Hashem. There's a mitzvah to believe in Hashem. That mitzvah we're being Mekayim when we're remembering Bereshis, when we're remembering that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. And we can remember that on Shabbos, because Shabbos shows this very point. The world came to an end. The creation of the world came to an end. That means there was a beginning. If there was a beginning, it means there was nothing here beforehand. If there was nothing here beforehand, that means there must be a creator who created everything from nothing. And therefore, Shabbos proves that Emunah that we have, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, and the mitzvah of remembering the Yichud of Hashem, when we say every day, numerous, at least 3 times a day, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashem is one, the pure oneness, the indivisible oneness, and the creator of everything. We remember that on Shabbos. That is what Shabbos does, and that connects back to the previous Chelek Aleph where we learned. That's what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is coming into the world. We're seeing now the Creator is here. He's the one who's being Megala on Shabbos. We are seeing Him. It's His day. It's the day we're showing Hashem, you are the Creator of the world. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Hashem, next week we'll continue.